When Hazel Turner arrived home for Christmas, she noticed something strange before she even took off her coat. Her seat at the table was gone. Not moved, gone. The lemon pie she'd baked still steamed in her hands as she stared at 6 plates gleaming under the chandelier, one of them placed where hers used to be. Her mother, Margaret, smiled like nothing was amiss. "It's just immediate family this year," she said, sliding a plate in front of Hazel's sister's fiancé. The words hit like ice water. Hazel forced a polite smile, setting the pie down. Inside, the question burned. If family means belonging, what happens when they quietly vote you out? Margaret always said Christmas was about tradition. The garland on the banister, the chipped snowman mugs, the radio station playing Bing Crosby on repeat. Everything looked perfect, painfully perfect. Hazel brushed snow from her coat, pretending not to notice that the only thing missing from the picture was her. Around her, laughter rose like nothing had changed. Her sister, Grace, beamed in a red jumper Hazel had given her last year. Brent, Grace's fiancé, laughed too loudly at one of their father's jokes, that deep corporate laugh that begged for approval. Margaret hovered near the stove, orchestrating everything like a conductor who already knew her cues. "Do you need help with the table?" Hazel asked, her voice light. Margaret didn't look up. "We're all set, sweetheart. It's just immediate family this year." The words came again, flat and rehearsed. Not cruel, not emotional, just certain. That certainty cut deeper than any argument could. Hazel's eyes drifted back to the table. 6 plates. Mum, Dad, Grace, Brent, Uncle Neil, and Karen, Neil's new girlfriend of 3 months. A family extended where it was convenient, trimmed where it wasn't. Her seat, the one she'd sat in since childhood, was now Brent's. Her name card was gone. Her place erased as if she'd never been there at all. Grace glanced up, her smile faltering. "I didn't know they were doing this," she whispered. "I thought you were coming later." Hazel smiled softly. "Yeah. Guess I should have called ahead." No one corrected her. The silence between words felt like a verdict. For a second, Hazel almost fetched a folding chair like she used to when cousins came over. But something inside her stopped. Not anger, just clarity. 4 years she'd been the quiet backbone of this family. The one who sent money when bills stacked up, who fixed problems before they broke. Hazel remembered every unspoken contribution. The rent she'd paid for Grace when she lost her job. The repairs for the lake house her father refused to admit needed work. Grocery cards. Streaming accounts. Subscriptions that magically renewed under her name. All of it flowed through her. She thought contribution meant belonging. But watching her mother place that final plate before Brent, she realized it had never been about gratitude. It had been about convenience. She wasn't family. She was funding. Margaret wiped her hands on a towel and called everyone to sit. "Come along, everyone. Dinner's ready." Her tone was warm again, the kind of practiced warmth that made outsiders feel welcome. Hazel lingered, waiting for someone to notice she hadn't sat down. No one did. She adjusted her scarf, smiled faintly, and said, "You lot start without me." Margaret nodded, unfazed. "We'll save you some pie." Hazel walked out before her mother remembered that the pie was hers. The cold outside hit harder than she expected. Snowflakes clung to her hair, melting down her collar as she crossed the drive. Behind her, the house glowed golden through the frost. Warm, perfect, and completely false. Through the window, she saw Grace lift her glass, Brent saying something that made them all laugh. Margaret smiled. From outside it looked like a postcard. Inside, Hazel knew, it was the quietest kind of betrayal. She sat in her car, the pie on the passenger seat, watching her breath fog up the glass. The radio still played Bing Crosby's "I'll Be Home for Christmas." The irony almost made her laugh. Almost. Her mind drifted to the last few years, the endless stream of family emergencies that somehow always ended up on her screen. Grace's rent payment, Mum's electric bill, Dad's loan for repairs. They never asked directly. They hinted, waited, and she filled the silence with money. Because that's what love meant, didn't it? Making things easier. But love, Hazel realized, had become a transaction. And she was the only one still paying. She could picture her budgeting spreadsheet at home, where a single category, family, kept swallowing her savings whole. Grocery cards, Prime memberships, one-time emergencies that repeated every month. She told herself it was love. But sitting there in her car, surrounded by falling snow, she finally saw it for what it was: maintenance. She'd been maintaining their comfort at the cost of her own. Headlights from a passing car flared across the window, illuminating her reflection. Tired eyes, tight jaw, the pie untouched. Hazel wasn't angry. Anger would have been too easy. What she felt was quieter, heavier, a shift in balance. She remembered something her mother once told her at 16. Grace needs more attention. You're stronger, Hazel. She'd believed it. Thought strength meant giving more, needing less. But strength without boundaries wasn't strength. It was servitude. A soft knock on the glass startled her. A boy from next door waved, gesturing toward the driveway. Snow was piling up fast. Hazel nodded and started the engine. The heater hummed to life, filling the silence. As she reversed, she caught one last glimpse of her mother leaning close to Brent, laughing at something he said. Her hand on his shoulder, proud, possessive. Hazel's chest ached with an old, familiar understanding. Her mother never looked that way at her. The snow thickened as she drove toward the main road, wipers moving in a slow rhythm like a metronome marking time. People say silence keeps peace, but in Hazel's family, silence was how you disappeared. That night she didn't cry. She didn't shout. She just drove home and made a quiet promise. Never again would she buy her place at that table. When she returned to her flat, it was midnight, the kind of biting cold that crawls through walls. She set the lemon pie on the counter, still untouched, and stood there a moment, coat half off, shoes wet. The silence felt honest. No forced laughter, no background music. Just the hum of the fridge and the tick of the clock. Hazel poured herself a glass of water and stared at her reflection in the window, a woman who'd finally run out of pretending. Her phone buzzed. Messages from her mother, Grace, then her father. 32 texts stacked one after another like accusations. She didn't open a single one. Instead, she turned to her laptop. The cold blue light filled the kitchen. Her budgeting app was still open. Click, £500 monthly transfer to her parents. Paused. Click, Grace's car payment cancelled. Click, Amazon Prime ended. Click, Netflix. Logged out from all devices. Each click sounded like a match being struck, not to burn bridges, but to light her way out. Hazel didn't leave a note, no explanation. Just quiet boundaries where noise used to live. Another message pinged. Are you really doing this over one dinner? She closed the laptop, made coffee even though it was nearly 1 in the morning. The smell filled the flat, grounding her. She wrapped her hands around the mug and let the warmth settle. For years, she'd been the helper, the reliable one who never said no. Tonight she said it without a word. A memory flickered. Mom in the kitchen when Hazel was 12, telling Grace she had a creative spirit, then turning to Hazel. And you, my dear, you're the practical one. You'll keep things running. Back then, Hazel had thought it was a compliment. Tonight, it sounded like a life sentence she'd finally finished serving. The phone buzzed again. Then the doorbell. She didn't move. Whoever it was could stand in the snow a bit longer. She sipped her coffee, eyes on the pie cooling on the counter. For the first time, she wasn't panicking about who might need her or who might be disappointed. The flat felt small but truly hers. The laptop still glowed faintly, the balance total lighter than it had ever been. People think revenge is loud, she thought, but sometimes it's just the sound of a final click in an empty room. The next morning, the knocking came before sunrise. Sharp, impatient, entitled. Hazel let it go on, watching the shadow behind the frosted glass. When she finally opened the door, her mother and Grace stood there, snow in their hair, coats half-buttoned. "What did you do?" Margaret demanded before even stepping inside. Hazel leaned on the doorframe. "Good morning to you too." Her mother's tone was tight. Why didn't the money go through? My card got declined. Grace can't pay her loan. You cancelled Prime. You're being cruel. Hazel studied her mother's face. The same face that once checked her for fevers, now flushed with outrage. Cruel, she repeated softly. For paying for myself instead of everyone else. You weren't uninvited, Margaret snapped. It was just a smaller dinner, Hazel said. With a plate for Brent. He's part of Grace's future, her mother replied, arms folded. We didn't think you'd make a big deal out of it. Then came the line that cut deeper than any before. You've no husband, no kids, and you earn well. It's your responsibility to support this family while Grace starts her life. Grace didn't deny it. She just looked down, cheeks red. Something inside Hazel clicked. Quiet, irreversible. 4 years, she'd been trying to fit into a role they'd already rewritten. They hadn't forgotten her seat. They'd reassigned it. I'm done, she said. Her mother blinked, caught off guard by how calm she sounded. You're choosing a fight, Margaret said. I'm choosing a boundary, Hazel replied. If you hear it as a fight, that's on you. Margaret's mouth tightened. Don't twist this into something noble, Hazel. You're abandoning your family. Hazel's voice stayed calm. No, I'm refusing to keep funding one. The silence that followed stretched long enough for the snow on their coats to start melting. Grace finally spoke, her voice trembling. Don't make this ugly. Hazel met her eyes. It already is. I've just stopped pretending it's not. Her mother sighed, shifting from anger to warning. You'll regret this. One day you'll need us. If that day comes, Hazel said, stepping back, I hope you answer the door. Then she closed it, gentle but final. The flat was quiet again, the kind of stillness that hums after a storm. For the next few days, Hazel's phone became a battlefield. Dozens of texts, some pleading, some furious, some guilt wrapped in concern. She muted the group chat, switched off notifications, and poured herself into work. The quiet was addictive. Until, on January 3rd, a message appeared from a number she didn't recognize. Brent Callahan. No greeting, no preamble. Just one line. I don't know if I should send this, but you deserve to hear it. Attached was an audio file. Hazel hesitated before pressing play. At first, she heard clinking cutlery, Christmas music, the scrape of chairs. Then came voices. Uncle Neil. So, how's the martyr doing? Margaret. Probably sulking like we ruined her wedding day. Grace. She'll get over it. She always does. Her father's low rumble. At least we can have a holiday without one of her lectures. Karen laughed. She always tries too hard. The gifts, the clothes. It's exhausting. Laughter followed. Then Brent's voice. You know, she can probably hear all this through the door. Silence. The kind that reveals guilt too late. When the recording ended, Hazel just sat there, the phone still in her hand, coffee cooling beside her. She didn't cry. She didn't even frown. The hurt felt surgical, clean, cold, final. A second message from Brent appeared. I'm sorry. I didn't know they spoke about you like that. I told Grace it was wrong. She got angry. I moved in after New Year's, but it's bad in there. Hazel stared at the words, stunned by the irony. The man who had taken her chair was the only one decent enough to tell her the truth. For days she tried not to replay that recording. She failed. Every cruel laugh echoed louder than the last. But anger, when it stays too long, cools into clarity. So when the next knock came, a week later, softer this time, Hazel was ready. Her mother stood there again, Grace behind her. Both looked tired, desperate. The kitchen caught fire, Margaret said, voice trembling. It's bad. We need help until insurance clears. Hazel's hand stayed on the doorframe. Is everyone okay? Yes, her mother answered quickly. We just need a little help to get through the month. There it was again. Not thank you, not we're safe, just the ask. Hazel reached into her coat pocket and pulled out an envelope. Her mother's face softened with relief, until she opened it. Inside was a single £40 note. What's this supposed to be? Margaret demanded. That, Hazel said quietly, is what my seat at the table was worth. The silence that followed felt like snow before it falls. Thick, suspended, waiting. Grace whispered, "That's not fair." "Neither was Christmas," Hazel replied. "You're being spiteful," Margaret snapped. Hazel's tone stayed even. "No. I'm being consistent." She placed the envelope on the counter beside a pile of charred recipe cards and turned to leave. "You don't have to be like this," Grace called after her. Hazel paused at the door. "Like what?" "Cold." Grace hesitated. Hazel's gaze was steady. "You called me cold when I stopped paying your heating bill too." The words landed softly, without venom, just truth. She closed the door behind her, leaving them in the quiet they'd earned. Outside, the wind bit at Hazel's face. Each step through the snow felt like punctuation, marking an ending. When she reached her car, she breathed out, the air crisp and sharp. At home, she lit a candle and made tea. The city was hushed, the kind of calm that only comes after something breaks. Her phone buzzed again. "Please, Hazel, it's family," her mother wrote. Hazel turned the phone face down. Family shouldn't sound like a demand. The next day, Brent appeared at her door, looking exhausted. Snow clung to his coat. Guilt clouded his eyes. "I moved out," he said quietly. Couldn't stay there anymore. He pulled out an envelope, hesitated, then handed it to her. Inside were receipts, bank statements, her name printed neatly at the top. "She opened a credit card in your name," he said. "About 8 grand in charges. Said you'd understand. That you'd never press charges because you're family." Hazel went still. Not shocked, just confirmed. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. "Because it's wrong," Brent said. "And because I couldn't keep pretending." When he left, Hazel spread the papers across her desk. Restaurant bills, hotel stays, a stroller from an expensive boutique. £8,000 of betrayal that night. She called the bank, then a lawyer. The process was clinical but freeing. Every signature, every verification felt like cutting a cord that had held her for years. 2 days later, Grace texted, "You don't have to make this worse." The next day, her mother called. "We don't call the police on family." Hazel's voice was calm. "We should though. Silence is what got us here." When the police reached out to Grace, the calls stopped. The noise ended. No more messages disguised as concern. No more guilt dressed up as love. Weeks later, her lawyer confirmed it. Her name cleared. The account closed. Justice didn't arrive with fireworks. It came quietly, through paperwork and peace. That night, Hazel sat by the window, candle flickering low, and whispered to herself, "The debt is paid." March came quietly. The snow melted into gray puddles. Her phone stayed silent. No more emergencies. No more obligations pretending to be affection. Hazel thought she'd miss the noise, but peace had its own rhythm. Coffee brewing, radiator hissing, the rare sound of her own laughter when a film actually made her laugh. One afternoon, her lawyer rang. "Everything's finalized," she said. "The bank apologized for the delay." After hanging up, Hazel sat there, listening to nothing. No new crisis to brace for. No one depending on her silence. Just stillness. She poured a cup of coffee, the aroma filling the flat. Outside, weak sunlight caught puddles where snow used to lie. Her phone buzzed, one voicemail. Her father. She hesitated, thumb hovering, then pressed play. "Hey, sweetheart," his voice began, softer than she remembered. "I don't know if you'll listen to this, but I need to say it. You were right. We treated you like a safety net. And when you finally stepped away, everything collapsed. Your mom's not ready to admit it, and Grace, well, she's Grace. But I see it now." He paused, exhaling slowly. "We built a family that only made noise when it needed something. Sorry. I hope one day you'll talk to us again. Not for money, just to talk." The message ended with a soft click, leaving Hazel in silence. She didn't cry. She just smiled faintly. For the first time, truth had finally landed somewhere other than her heart. She saved the voicemail, not to replay it, but to keep proof that remorse was possible. Then she reached for her notebook, the one filled with every payment, every quiet act of generosity, and wrote a final line beneath them all. The debt is paid. Closing the cover sounded like a lock clicking shut. Outside, the last of the snow had vanished. The air smelled faintly of rain and thawed earth. Hazel opened the cupboard and took out the pie dish that had sat untouched since Christmas. She washed it carefully, the scent of lemons still clinging to the metal. The kitchen filled with soft warmth, the kind that belonged to no one but her. She brewed tea and sat by the window. The evening light was pale, stretching across quiet streets. For years, Hazel had thought family meant endurance. Enduring slights, demands, and the quiet erasure of her worth. Now she understood family should mean choice. Choice to give, to step back, to belong without condition. As the city lights blinked on below, she felt something unfamiliar but steady settle inside her. Not the fragile kind that needs silence to survive, but the kind that grows roots. She thought of that Christmas table, the missing chair, the laughter that had once cut her. Then she let it fade, piece by piece, until all that remained was calm. Hazel smiled, her reflection soft in the window glass. She whispered to herself, "I came home for Christmas once, but I found something better than a seat at their table, my own peace." She lifted her mug in a quiet toast to no one and everyone, to endings that healed and beginnings that didn't need permission. The candle flickered low, the room aglow with stillness. And for the first time in years, Hazel Turner was home.